Take it away, Jackie boy.
Good evening and welcome to Heads or Tails. Your call is heads.
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 I'm gonna go for tails.
Tails.
Call is tails.
Yes.
Keep making the right call. We will double your money all the way up to £1 million.
Wow.
It's it! You're not that far off. You're not that far away.
Rock region.
Yeah, well, here we are. Glass of pastis in hand, fag in the other hand.
It really is a wonderful lifestyle down here in the summer. And the good thing is that the region hasn't been spoiled yet by too many tourists. Well, maybe except for me and my family.
I'm Maurice Abney-Hastings. Pretty boring character, I suppose. Really, I don't know.
Here, I must be mad.
That's as maybe. But I'm going to be eating and drinking my way through the route followed by Robert Louis Stevenson in his book Travels with a Donkey in the Cevennes.
I'm 59 years old, thereabouts. Started life as a navigation officer in the Merchant Navy. And I've worked for the last 25 or so years in the medical industry, designing, marketing, selling medical equipment, largely ophthalmology. Although I've had wonderful experiences, I've travelled all over the world, it has made married life very difficult. And the outcome of it is that since 1963, I have had 3 wives and 1 long-term relationship. The good thing is, from those 3 marriages, I've got 5 wonderful children, now 4 grandchildren.
Hi, I'm Tori.
I'm James, I'm the son.
And obviously Morris is my father.
Hi, I'm Lucy, I'm Maurice's youngest daughter.
Because I and they love France, we decided that it would be a good idea if we got together and bought a little old property in France. What we bought was effectively a beautiful old house, but a pile of rubble. If we hadn't bought it, then it would have probably not survived another winter. So it is peaceful, it is rural, it is lovely.
Until we got stuck in.
You may not believe it, but this, within weeks, is going to be a bedroom.
As long as the slaves don't revolt.
Not quite convinced, but... Now, this room actually is one of the first ones we're trying to get ready. There are some more visitors, willing helpers and free labour, slaves, due in on Sunday.
I'm Martin, I'm James's friend. Just finished my A-levels and I've come out to the south of France for a nice relaxing holiday after all the hard work of the last 2 years. Or so I thought anyway. Instead I've been down this dingy cellar, knocking concrete off walls, and that's only the start of it. Already I'm starting to be referred to as the #1 slave labourer.
These 2 brave young men are going to do everything.
My daughter's fiancé, Joel, is the taskmaster.
But the weather's nice and I'm away from my family for a month, so...
Not that he'll be getting much sun with Tori and Joel in charge.
So all of these factors probably explain why I'm a little bit loopy.
Mind you, there's a method in my madness. I'm leaving them all to get on with it, while I'm off for one of my favourite French occupations, shopping in the markets. At home, all we seem to have is sterile, plastic-wrapped, plastic-flavoured produce. Not so here. They've got everything. Freshly baked bread, wonderful fresh ripe fruit, and as for the vegetables, well... And they make cheese from anything that squirts milk, and they make sausages from anything that moves. And the tomatoes have a glorious scent of their own, I'm going to have to get some.
13,80 s'il vous plaît.
And certainly at these prices, I'm not complaining. And the bees which make this honey feed on local lavender fields. I love their foods, but not half as much as their wines. Talking of which...
Ça va?
Ça va très bien, vous?
Ça va bien.
Good. I need one bucket of red.
Of red?
One rosé.
One rosé and
one white, please.
one white. This is a wine which is 3 years old. And the other one is a Corbière, is only 12%. This is 13%, and this is 11%.
10%. Let's go for the 12. How long have you been here?
5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
And before that in the wine business, or?
I was German teacher. The conditions for teachers in France are very bad.
Are they? Nice.
And every year worse.
Gosh. I think, well, in England, I think the teachers also say this. Well, good luck anyway. Thank you. Lovely to meet you. Thank you very much. And I've no doubt that I will be here regularly for my wine.
Thank you very much, and you are welcome every day.
Thank you. The Grand Bassin Castelnaudary is about the central point of the Canal du Midi. It's a great tourist attraction and brings hundreds of visitors to the area in the summer. This is the 14th of July, Bastille Day, French national holiday. But as you can see behind me, we're supposed to have blue sky over there, and we're all supposed to be complaining about the heat. But in fact, it's rather cold, rather wet, but still, they're looking forward to a pretty good competition. The boat competition consists of lots of noisy jet skis, ruining the normal peace. Oh well, they seem to hurtle around the marker buoys and do an awful lot of showing off. It's a great atmosphere, though.
Voilà, voilà. Voilà. Oh dear, now I really am nervous. The organisers challenged me to go out on this fearsome American drag boat. He's getting it clean, he's refueling it even, which worries me even more. And I've got a feeling this could be quite interesting. Terrifying! I don't know what I'm doing out here. I must be mad. Thank God that's over. Whew, I can hardly walk. I was absolutely bloody terrified. But it was quite an experience. I'm really pleased that I did it. Ah, taxi! Now we're gathered to play pétanque, pool. The teams are playing in pairs, doublet. And basically the first to score 13 points wins that particular game. And the bullies are all gathering together now. And we're looking forward to an afternoon of great competition. I've been playing this form of ball for over 30 years, and I was even the founder president of the British Pétanque Association. I also wrote the Pernod Book of Pétanque, which became the standard UK classic of its day. Oh well, it's out of print now, but it did give me lots of free pasties. I've generously allowed my son and his friend an afternoon away from working on the house. About 20-something years ago, I lived in a lovely little village in Hampshire called Shedfield, and we had a cricket club. One Easter we all went over to France just for a jolly, and ended up playing pétanque. Pool. And that was the start of the British Pétanque Association.
It's a good game, and the reason it's popular is it's age doesn't matter. Youngsters can play, old people can play. Anybody who travels to France will see it. Normally it's accompanied by a glass of pastis, a Gauloise cigarette, and a funny little cap.
I've played all over Europe, and even as far away as Canada. Never beaten the French show. Oh, bugger my back again.
Well, I'm afraid the English team didn't do very well. I think they came 8th, was it? Out of 8.
Our nearest large town is Castelnaudary, and it's the world capital of cassoulet. This hefty dish is sold everywhere in town. Our little village, Montoriol, celebrates its Saint's Day with a cassoulet supper. It's a strange dish. Well, my neighbours seem to be looking forward to it.
Oh my God, it's arrived! It looks wonderful, I must admit. It's apparently made of duck and sausage of Castelnaudary and white beans from the village here. So, cassoulet, here we come.
Everybody's having a terrific time. And of course, the local wine does add to the flavour.
It's absolutely delicious, I don't believe this. It's really good. Well, I think I've survived that. I'm lying. And I'll tell you what, all this nonsense about French people not liking the English and not being welcoming is absolute rubbish. These are the loveliest, warmest, most hospitable people I could ever hope to meet anywhere. You know, we're in a little town, foothills of the Pyrenees, and they really are lovely. If I come back here next year, I will certainly come.
Saint's Day celebrations go on well into the night. They've even laid on a typical French band with an Edith Piaf sound-alike belting it out. The audience is already rocking and rolling, or are they just swerving and swaying due to the booze? To finish the evening, Mondo, Dingo and his sexy dancers. Some of my neighbours looked a bit dubious, but I enjoyed the routine. Just the thing to tickle my fancy before setting off tomorrow for the Stevenson Trail.
It's time to funk me.
Bon nuit and sweet dreams.
This is where it all started. This is a square in the Monastir where Robert Louis Stevenson purchased his donkey Modesty from a strange character called Father Adam. He'd already spent a month in Monastir getting all his gear together for the great trip, which resulted probably in his first really good book, My Travels with a Donkey in the Cevennes. And many recognize this book as the first great travel book. It's not an amazing journey, it's not an adventurous journey in many ways. But to quote Robert Louis Stevenson himself, to travel hopefully is better than to arrive.
Certainly, to travel through this beautiful region is a huge pleasure in itself. Shortly after leaving the town of Le Monastir, I came across a French group with donkeys. I had not imagined trekking the Stevenson Trail was so popular here. Maybe their guide can give me some tips on travelling with a donkey.
Ils sont difficiles? Non, c'est des animaux très gentils.
He's saying that the donkeys are very sweet-natured, but they have to be treated and talked to like children.
Parfois, il faut prendre une
And if they're
baguette
naughty,
et-
you take a baguette gently to their derrière.
sur les postérieurs.
What has amazed me walking around is the importance of Stevenson to the French. They certainly regard him far more than the English, who just tend to think of Treasure Island and Jekyll and Hyde. I've passed a number of groups of French youngsters, students, but choosing to spend their holidays following the Stevenson Trail in the Cevennes, which is, I find, very, very interesting. I'm somewhat surprised.
Well, it's about time I found my own modestine to carry my gear and the wine casks. I was told that I can hire a donkey in the town of Pradelles.
The people come to Pradelles for the Stevenson book and to hire the donkey.
Ah, right. This is Henri, and even before I get him loaded, he is being remarkably stubborn and asinine. Typical. He is, though, very pretty. But I really couldn't get him to move. No, I really couldn't get him to move.
Well, apart from the fact that I probably couldn't afford to have one for the whole trip, I think it would take me months to do it with a donkey, and I can see why poor old Louis, got terribly frustrated. I think he had the same problems in that basically Modestine went when Modestine wanted to go, and Modestine went basically where Modestine wanted to go. And this chap is doing exactly the same. Wow, this is very slow progress.
Perhaps a stroll past the local butcher will create some action. If not, I wonder what filet de donkey would taste like medium rare. Robert Louis Stevenson's journey was about self-revelation. He had recently had an affair with an American married lady who had returned to the States. Pretty shocking stuff in the mid-19th century, and he was hurt. However, the beauty and the wilderness of the Cevennes gradually conquered his depression. I personally could understand this. To both Louis and myself, it brought an inner peace and a willingness to accept what the future may hold.
It's pretty lovely around here. And now I found my long shirt, my long sleeve shirt. It's actually getting warmer and warmer. So that is the trick with this region. Don't wear a short sleeve shirt because it'll go cold on you. Do wear a long sleeve shirt, it'll go warm. Maybe tomorrow I'll put a raincoat on to make sure it doesn't rain at all.
Today the weather is beautiful, but it's windy. I'm heading up the valley now to the Chateau of Luc, which Louis much admired.
It's just so beautiful up here. I can see why old Louis liked it. He was not quite so impressed with Our Lady on top of the hill. He felt it rather dominated everything too much. But it was actually very, very new, and it wasn't consecrated until a month after he was here. So it would have looked even more vivid and more white and more blue perhaps than it does today.
The area around the River Allier is stunningly beautiful and very peaceful. Louis stayed in an inn, sharing his room with a group of navvies building the viaduct at the time. The valley is dominated by the ruins of Chateau Beaufort, which Louis sketched.
I'm actually standing in front of the hotel that Stevenson spent his first night in at Le Goudet. It's a charming little village, but what fascinated him was the little bubbling stream, which he described so carefully, and is actually very close to the source of the River Loire. And when you think here we are, right deep south in France, and the Loire goes all the way up to the north and becomes a very mighty river coming out into the South Brittany area, into the top of the Bay of Biscay. It is amazing that this little teeny thing here should be just that.
The river runs into the Atlantic 800 kilometers away. When Stevenson stayed at the monastery retreat of Our Lady of the Snows, he was surprised how much he enjoyed the cold mutton and the hot debate. I imagine the journey with a not too talkative donkey also gave him time to question his religious beliefs and made him come eventually to a most momentous decision: to embrace Catholicism.
It was strange, really, for Louis to choose a Catholic monastery to stay in, bearing in mind his very strict Scottish Calvinistic upbringing. We're in the Notre-Dame de Niège, Our Lady of the Snows monastery, high up in the hills. Unfortunately, the buildings aren't totally original because they had a major fire in 1912. The way their life is spent is basically very much the same. The day starting at 4:30 in the morning with the first service, then another service at 6 o'clock and Mass at 7, and so on until the Salve Regina, great choral work, at 8:30 in the evening.
Even with the demanding prayer schedule, Stevenson must have thought that a night in a comfortable monastery was heaven after nights spent on the mountains in grotty weather. And seeing the monks enjoying the delights of the fermented grape must have been a real eye-opener.
Apart from that, the monks' farm, which must be pretty hard in the winter because, we are high up in the hills, but of course they do also produce their own grapes and produce their own most excellent wine.
Which reminds me, I need to stock up again. The wine here is actually remarkably good and very inexpensive. How on earth do they stay sober? The monastery produces all types, red, rosé and white, along with its own bubbly. It's time to hit the trail over Mont Lozère, the highest point on the Stevenson route. It's getting very squally now, but I've got my anorak. Just as the ancient snowstones mark the route across the mountain, so do the red and white spattered ones signpost the whole 220 kilometers of the great author's journey which he made with his donkey. It's certainly breathtaking. Well, my breath is taken.
Well, you've only got to look around here. Stevenson compared this with Scotland, but I think actually in many ways it is lovelier. The Cevennes Mountains, I think, are just stunning. They're so remote. Well, here we are at last, 1,699 metres.
That's higher than Britain's highest mountain. Now, that's what I call mountain biking.
You have a feeling that the world is a long way away.
On the south side of Mont Lozère is the lovely mountain town of Pont-de-Montvert, where the rivers Tarn and Louis-Moulat meet to thunder down to join the Garonne and pour in the Atlantic near Bordeaux.
Well, I've made it here to Pont-de-Montvert, over the top of that hill. I've arrived here actually at the hotel where RLS stayed, and he reports eating black bread and mutton and drinking half a bottle of cognac. But I understand that Monsieur le Patron here at the hotel these days is something of a mushroom, fungi specialist. He goes collecting mushrooms in the mountains every day and offers about 10 different varieties.
The patron, Jean Camus, who's actually the grandson of the great French author Albert Camus, always has a wide selection of mushroom dishes on his menu. Here Jean Camus is explaining to me which mushrooms are edible, which ones aren't, and indeed which ones can have some rather strange side effects.
Qui a le chapeau qui forme des écailles et qui est un excellent comestible.
He certainly knows his mushrooms. What he doesn't serve immediately, he stores in the deep freeze and enjoys showing them to his customers. I didn't even know you could freeze mushrooms. Oh well.
On ne trouve pas ce genre de produit.
Typically I would turn to the wine list first. The one that comes to my immediate attention is the Cuvée R.L. Stevenson. You get the feeling they're, taking advantage of it a little bit.
Still, if it pulls in the tourists, flaunt it.
I really can't believe this. I had my starter and then I asked the patron about his mushroom course, and suddenly, quite out of the blue, has appeared another plate of another type of mushroom. I'm not actually sure that I really want any more mushrooms, but he's being so kind and so helpful. These are cep, which is a speciality of the region. A plate of cep was very expensive. It was 80 francs, £8. So he's being terribly generous, and they're very good.
Wow, I feel absolutely stuffed.
Whew. I don't know if I could ever eat another mushroom again. Perhaps the most interesting part of Pont-de-Montvert is that is where the great Camisards uprising started.
The Camisards were 18th century revolutionary Protestants who really hated the established church, and they refused to pay their taxes to Rome.
The local Protestant population, who worshipped at the Protestant temple, where Stevenson felt fairly comfortable, being at that stage a Calvinist, the local population were fed up with the church inspector, one Abbé Chélar, and threw him off the sort of precipice and into the river, where he was stabbed many hundreds of times. Very tough old days, though, isn't they?
Pont-de-Montvert seems to be the epicenter of the Stevenson industry, and I'm not the only Brit here following Louis' trail. But it does seem I'm the only one roughing it. Isn't it funny how travellers the world over compare notes?
I think we have met this Stevenson connection is every ship we stayed there with a donkey. Yes. The first evening we saw there was a lovely two grandparents, a son, and two grandchildren, and two donkeys. Wow. And they were doing this walking holiday, and they sort of service the donkeys at night. I thought when in Rome, really.
Yeah. So you go to one gîte or a little hotel.
Yeah.
At our age, very civilized really. You stay in a gîte as we did the last few evenings. You know, you live in a gîte, you eat with a farmer and his wife.
But that's been an experience in itself, being in a gîte with a family and with 20 or 30, well, 20 people, 23 people sat down last night.
Last night. That's probably very wise. Go where you like to meet local people.
People of the country.
And people from, also, you know, you meet people from other countries as well.
It's part of the experience.
It's remote, isolated, unspoilt, and naturally beautiful, I think.
Well, the weather's getting worse again, so I'm off to see where I can pitch my tent for the night. The countryside is absolutely stunning. Its ruggedness is quite overwhelming at times. Mountains are slashed with gorges, which are magnificent, especially when the mists roll down from the mountain tops. It is an incredible area. I have finally found a campsite, very close to where Louis stayed. And the view is spectacular, although the tent is vile. Deep in the Languedoc country, the passing minstrels still sing Cathar tales of sadness and woe in their ancient tongue, Oc, the Languedoc. This ancient language has all but disappeared except in the most remote mountain villages, although the region still today is known as Languedoc. My bedtime reading tonight from Louis' book is a bit of a horror story, and a true one at that.
Less than 15 years before Louis arrived here, many people were killed by a particular wolf, the beast of Gévaudan. By the time Louis arrived, the people were still terrified.
Scary, isn't it? And tomorrow, there'll be more tales to tell.
Good night.
Morning. I eventually abandoned my wretched tent and got more reasonable accommodation.
As you can see, I've got one of the pleasures that Stevenson didn't have. It's a nice little caravan. It's got everything one needs.
A shower, a loo, a cooker, and a fridge.
It's also rather convenient having a splendid swimming pool. It seems a bit silly. It's not the real thing, I know. And it would have been, I suppose, much more genuine if I'd got a bit of old canvas and walked around and slept under that. But why the heck should I?
Especially at my age. After all, Louis himself was 30-odd years younger than me, and he chose hotels wherever he could find them. Now, why is it that whenever Brits travel abroad, they take loads of loo paper with them? I'm at last beginning to understand more of this region's incredible religious history. The Templars, the Gnostic Cathars, and the Camisards, which Stevenson wrote about.
The Templars were the most powerful body in the world during the 12th and 13th century, which is why eventually the Pope and the King of France, at the time King Philip, reacted against them, declared them heretics, and had, as with the Cathars, had most of them captured, burnt, tortured, and everything else. The Templars' cross at the entrance of the church, recognised these days as the St. John's Ambulance Brigade. Other clues in the church are that the statue to Mary is actually Mary Magdalene. The name of the church is St. Michael, and the largest number of paintings and statues are of the Archangel St. Michael, the patron saint of the Knights Templars. And you have all the clues, even some of the strange artifacts and devices outside and inside the church are recognisable to modern-day Freemasons.
The Templars were banned and persecuted, as were the Gnostic Cathars in the 14th century. Then came the Protestant Camisards and eventually the Huguenots. Much of their tradition is still preserved in the rituals of Freemasons today. When I woke this morning, I noticed everybody leaving the village in their cars. Being inquisitive, I followed in my trusty Skoda.
The Tour de France is coming through here today. It's something I don't think the Brits get very excited about, people racing on cycles. But in France, it really is a very, very important event.
I soon found my neighbours lining the road waiting for something to happen.
It's been going since 1903, and there are many, many national heroes from it. This year it's 23 days from the 1st to the 23rd of July, covering 3,662 kilometres.
Blimey, that's a bit close. You splashed my lens. I leave the cyclist pedalling north as I head further south into the Languedoc. More and more I'm confronted by the history and the mystery of the Templars and the Cathars. The Cathars, actually, they're one of their main things which carried through to the Knights Templars, which is carried through large parts of Freemasonry, is in actual fact that Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene and escaped. He survived the crucifixion and ended up in France. Legend also has it that the mighty treasures brought from Jerusalem by the Knights Templar were hidden in this area. They were certainly friendly with the Cathars of the region, and it's not unreasonable to assume that the treasure may have been hidden away from the prying eyes of the church and state in the Cathar strongholds.
All the stories of bravery, of revolution, the Camisards in the Cevennes Mountains, the Cathars, the Templars, and even indeed the modern day people such as the Freemasons, all have a central point, and that is here at Rennes-le-Château, a medieval village of mystery perched on top of a mountain in the Pyrenees.
This is where the modern treasure story starts, when a parish priest in 1885 became immensely wealthy almost overnight, and flaunting his newly gotten gains aroused suspicion amongst his parishioners and the church hierarchy alike.
I'm sitting here in the garden of the Villa Magdala in Rennes-le-Château. And Rennes-le-Château has become a famous tourist site, unfortunately I suppose. But it's a tourist site not for ordinary tourists, it's a tourist site for people who dabble in the occult and the mysterious. These included the Camisards, reported upon by Robert Louis Stevenson, the Cathars of this region down in the southwest part of the Languedoc, the Templars. The suggestion is that they did have the treasure which has been variously described as the Holy Grail, or indeed the Ark of the Covenant.
It is this implausible yet fascinating Indiana Jones type of tale that has attracted so many power seekers and enlightenment gurus through the ages to this mountaintop town, a melting pot of belief and mysticism and magic. It was all inspired by the wealth amassed by that local priest over 100 years ago, who's now honoured in a shrine to his memory in a small museum. To this day, Rennes-le-Château attracts other people, like myself, interested in the legends surrounding Priest Saunière.
It's been rather like a competition here at Rennes-le-Château. I've been walking around with my handycam and been following around a professional TV crew with their great big beta cam. And they're from the French channel Arte, and they're doing a very similar thing about Rennes-le-Château.
We're doing a documentary about Saunière, and a little bit more about the people who are looking for the treasure.
Have you found them yet?
We have found the people, but we haven't found the treasure
yet. I'm totally envious of you going around with a crew. I would love. You wouldn't like to spend the next week with you, would you?
It's time to get back to the house to see how the workers are getting on with the renovation.
Well, technically, I've now left the Cevennes. Bye-bye, Cevennes. Bye-bye, Robert Louis Stevenson. It has been a fascinating and lovely trip. I do hope to come back one day. Before I'm too old and crotchety to get up Mont Lazer. And I'd rather like to do something, maybe in 10 years, if I'm still fit enough, to take my 4 grandchildren. I'm heading south now to my family down in Montoriol near Castelnaudary. Main reason is, it's my birthday today. Happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday to you.
Hey, get this good.
Happy birthday.
What was your birthday? Oh,
Happy birthday to you.
Gosh.
Happy birthday. Who wants a drink?
I started this program by saying that I was a bit loopy, but then so are most of my friends and neighbours.
I don't know what to say. I was complaining, thinking all the way back. I sang happy birthday to myself. I thought everybody had forgotten. And then I walk into this. Everybody I've met in the area, they're absolutely wonderful. A super surprise. And, I just thank all my kids and everyone who organised it. Love you. So I can do more at 60 than at 59. Ooh, I like that.
It's absolutely amazing. We've only been here for a short time, and yet we've been made to feel so welcome, not only by the French, but by the many expatriates living in the area. I've counted, and we've got 7 different nationalities here tonight. It really is wonderful. It's our own mini United Nations.
From your children that are here, there's 3 of them out of the 5. And then
The 5 that we know of.
I hope next year for my 60th that my eldest 2 and their children can be here as well. It's time now for our own Eurovision Song Contest. And our first contestant is Britt from Sweden. Actually, she's lived here for 17 years and she's a sculptress. I think it shows.
Joel and I are getting married next September in the church that's about 10 steps from the front door of the house.
Well, that's news to me. I do hope she's told Joel. Well, they won't be short of volunteers to sing at the wedding.
Well, if 30 years ago somebody had said, well, what would you like to be doing in 30 years' time? I probably would have said, I'd love to be sitting in a garden in southern France, in a house that I partly owned with my family.
Here's my son.
Little son, James.
Drinking a glass of pastis. Cheers. That's exactly what I'm doing, and enjoying it.
This has been an extraordinary journey, and Tori and Joel have just announced that they're going to be having a baby. Shouldn't the wedding come first? Oh my lord, it means I'll be a granddad again.
Will you please not do this? Sorry about the cat.